Hi. Hello, my name is Wendy Hamilton, and welcome to the Mayor's Commission for Citizens with Disabilities monthly meeting. As a reminder, the purpose of the Mayor's Commission for Citizens with Disabilities is to promote quality of life, accessibility, and equity in all aspects related to the City of Omaha on behalf of and in cooperation with the citizens of Omaha who experience disabilities. Our chair, Mike Masker, is out today. I'm the vice chair, and I will be serving as leader of the meeting. The purpose of the commission is to advise the mayor, city council, city department heads, and other City of Omaha personnel on issues of access, representation, employment, housing, and quality of life affecting city citizens with disabilities and their respective families. We are to serve as a resource for Omaha citizens with disabilities and their families to express concerns and resolutions regarding issues affecting them. And in addition to the other resources and services we provide, we exist to promote awareness to the general public on the capabilities, needs, and desires of citizens with disabilities. And this afternoon, we're going to be hearing from one of those resource groups. We're really excited about that. Some housekeeping for you. We want to welcome everyone who is with us today in the audience and thank our interpreter, which we'll thank you again at the end. And also those of you who may be watching at home. As a reminder, this will rebroadcast Tuesday evenings on Cox Channel 18 at 7 o'clock. It is riveting television. I encourage you to have your DVR ready to pause and replay at all times. We also are hoping to have our meetings available to view online, although at this exact moment I'm not sure we have that capability, but stay tuned. Go to cityofomaha.org. What we're going to do right now before we introduce our speaker is we'll go through the commissioners and have everybody introduce themselves as well as the organization or the disability that they are affiliated with. We will start over here to my right with Jan.
Hi, I'm Jan Blosser. I represent citizens with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and I am the executive director for Mosaic in Omaha.
Hi, my name is Mark Smith. I serve on the faculty at the Monroe-Meyer Institute at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. We provide therapy, research, and training for professionals across numerous disabilities, but in particular intellectual and developmental disabilities. I should say also that I am the parent of a young man with an intellectual disability as well as a sibling of a younger sister with intellectual disability. So I represent not only my professional activities but also the family component.
Good afternoon. My name is John Glenn. I'm the Vice President of Development for Medina Rehabilitation Hospitals. And I can say hospitals because we have a brand new campus in Omaha as well as one in Lincoln. We specialize in traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injury, neurological disease, stroke with ventilator management, and we're very excited to be part of Omaha's vibrant healthcare community.
Hi, I'm Jen Alpha.
Hi, I'm Janae Hofer.
And I only London doing and more.
I'm an attorney at Lamson, Dugan, and Murray.
And I work with that citizen with physical disabilities.
And I represent citizens with physical disabilities.
Great, thank you. And again, I'm Wendy Hamilton, and I represent adults with autism spectrum disorders. My mother has an autism spectrum disorder, so I'm part of a slightly different demographic of people, which is children of adults with an intellectual disability. So thank you, everyone, for being here. We did not have a quorum today, so we will take care of any other voting business at a later date. And what I would like to do now is welcome our guest speaker this month. Her name is Jen Paproth, and she is a program director with Nebraska VR. So thank you so much for being here, and you let us know if you would like Q&A during your presentation or after. We're very flexible.
Okay, all right. All right, so I am with Nebraska VR, and VR stands for Vocational Rehabilitation Services. And our tagline, as we like to call it, is where your future begins. And as this production goes on, I'm certain that you'll be able to understand why we like to say where your future begins with Nebraska VR. Well, I pressed the button. Thank you. Uh-oh.
Oh.
Sorry.
I told you it was riveting television.
Good?
I hope so.
Okay.
Let's see.
We'll see. All right. So I have it split screen so that everyone who's viewing can see the notes, and so that I can also see my notes as I'm going through this PowerPoint presentation. Our mission at Nebraska VR is that we help people with disabilities prepare for, find, and keep jobs while helping businesses recruit, train, and retain employees with disabilities. So our agency really does serve two customers. We serve our clients who come to us who are looking for work, and we also serve employers who are looking for individuals with talent to be employable within the community. At Nebraska VR, we do have eligibility criteria for anyone that does come to our agency. You'll see here on this slide that there are 4 criteria to be eligible to be served at Nebraska VR. One is impairment, that you have to have a diagnosed impairment, and I'll go into a little bit more in depth in a minute. Impediment to employment, that you'll benefit from VR services, and that you also require VR services. This here shows just a general snapshot of the different types of impairments that Nebraska VR serves. And you'll see that it's actually easier to say who we don't serve. So we do not serve individuals who are visually impaired. They will go to the Nebraska Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired. So we serve individuals with all other impairments. You must have a diagnosed impairment. Another word for this is disability. This could be some type of physical, mental, emotional, or learning disability. So individuals that might want to come to VR would be individuals that maybe have difficulty learning skills at work. Maybe they have difficulty learning in the classroom environment. Maybe they've been involved in special education classes. Problems maybe getting along with others in the workplace. That could be coworkers, customers, supervisors. Difficulty maintaining their current job, problems keeping a job, and difficulty with organization, such as forgetting appointments, etc. And so with our agency, we actually can work with individuals to help them get better in these areas so that they can be successful in the world of work. The second criteria is the impediment to employment. We must be able to show that the impairment has caused you some problems in past employment, current employment, or would cause some problems preparing for and getting employment in the future. And that you can benefit from VR services. We must be able to show that VR services would help you obtain successful employment. Lastly is whether or not the individual requires services through our agency. We must be able to show that VR services are needed for you to reach successful employment. You must be present in the state of Nebraska in order to receive services through Nebraska Vocational Rehab, although we do have agencies throughout the nation. You also must be one of the following: a U.S. citizen, a permanent resident that possesses an alien registration card or green card, and a non-citizen who is authorized to work by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. This shows a snapshot of our Nebraska VR orientation video. We actually have a lot of our information in social media, and YouTube happens to be one of the forums that you'll find information about our agency, as well as Facebook and Twitter. So once eligibility has been determined, your counselor will help you determine an appropriate job goal and plan to reach that goal. Together, you will explore your work interests, work values, work preferences, work considerations, training, job skills, job history, and support network. To learn more about this, the orientation video, as I said, is on our YouTube channel, and this is the link that you can find it at. We also have a Pathway to Employment series. This is a snapshot of one of our videos that I mentioned streams on social media. And it's a good example if you want to know more about our agency and how we've helped individuals. These are good videos to watch to find some of those success stories through our agency that individuals with certain impairments have been able to find success in the world of work. So moving on with eligibility, once that has been determined, your counselor will help you determine an appropriate job goal and plan to reach that goal. We call that an let me think here. It's an IPE. And together, you will explore your work interests, your work values, your work preferences, work considerations, training, and job skills. This is a snapshot of our Nebraska VR office locations. Our office locations are actually across the I-80, all the way from Omaha, and Scottsbluff is on the far end of western Nebraska. We serve individuals in all counties. We also have VR specialists in all of the high schools across the state of Nebraska as well. And we do have a fairly large transition program which serves youth and students with disabilities. Students with disabilities would range in age from 16 to 21 years of age. This also just shows, again, some information about some of our success rates. This is a 2015 snapshot. As you'll see for this snapshot, the applicants that we served across the state were 5,413 applicants. Those that received vocational services were 7,034. And those that were successfully employed were 2,168. We have a rehab rate which shows the successful outcomes of those that have an IPE, which is that individualized plan for employment, and our rehab rate is 66.5%. The performance level is 55.8%. So you'll see that Nebraska VR does very well in what we do. 58% of clients are employed full-time, and the average wage for 2015 was $11.45. This is also a snapshot that we have from 2015. It's occupations for the competitively employed Nebraska VR clients. And what you will see from this bar graph is all of the types of occupations that we've been able to successfully place our clients in. The highest being the services occupations, so anything in retail, perhaps human services and the like. And then our second highest would be professional, so that might be your administrative positions or anything that requires some sort of perhaps a degree. And you'll just see there's plenty of other types of occupations. We really look at the skills and the interests of each of the clients that come to our agency. It's not so much about the disability, but it's about what you can do and how you can do it that we like to look at when working with our clients to help them find suitable employment. Again, as I stated, VR can be found in many different avenues on social media: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Oh, that must be the end of my presentation. So with that, I don't know if there are any questions from anyone about the agency.
How would somebody go about getting services? If they're at home watching this and they want employment services, what should they do?
Okay, that's a great question. So here in the Omaha metro area, we have two office locations. One office is at 1313 Farnham, and that serves individuals in the downtown, midtown, and kind of the north and south Omaha metro areas. We also have a VR office located on 120th and Q, and that office serves anyone from, I believe it's 72nd Street heading north and south and all the way west. And if individuals are interested, they can certainly go to our website, which is www.vr.ne.gov, and they can learn more about which offices might be more suitable to where they're located, transportation and such. And the first thing to do is to contact us at one of those 2 office locations that I mentioned, and the individual that answers the phone will go through a series of questions and get you scheduled for an initial appointment into one of our offices. And that's the same outside of the Omaha metro area too, all the way through the state of Nebraska. It's the same process.
Thank you.
I know there, thank you. I know there have been some federal law changes around disability and employment. And my question, I was wondering how, given VR's long history of working in training and employment services, how that may be affecting your role. Is there more of an emphasis on using VR services, more of an emphasis on finding jobs for individuals with disabilities through VR services?
So I'm assuming that you are referencing WIOA, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, that is presenting some changes for vocational rehab, certainly. What I can tell you, our agency is actually in Nebraska, the state of Nebraska. There's a lot of other states looking at the state of Nebraska to help them figure out how to coordinate their services with WIOA. So we're actually in really good standing with the federal regulations. Some of the key changes that are taking place within our service organization would be that transition program I mentioned earlier. There is going to be a key emphasis placed upon services to students and youth with disabilities throughout the educational setting. And so we are actually right now coordinating efforts with all of the school districts across the state of Nebraska to ensure that we are offering the necessary services and supports to adhere to those federal regulations. And the other piece to that is more emphasis on the DD population, the developmentally delayed population. And with that, we are working with DD services, and we are looking to promote more assessments for that population so that they can look more into competitive and integrated employment as an aspect of one of the regulation changes with WIOA. Outside of that, our agency is going to operate very similarly to how we have in the state of Nebraska. It's been since 1921 that we have offered services to folks with disabilities. And as far as offering any necessary services or supports to the disability population in order for them to achieve competitive employment, that is certainly one of the things that we'll continue to do. And that won't change much with the regulations.
First, thanks for being here this afternoon. Second, depending on people's ability level, can you give us a broad stroke brush on what services you are offering for those folks out there that may not know your rich history going back to 1921? Sure.
A lot of the services and supports we offer are definitely considered individualized. When we first sit down with someone, we really try to take a comprehensive look at that individual's history, whether or not they have worked, what that capacity of work has looked like, and if they have not worked, maybe we go back to how it was for them in their academic school setting, getting some information about some of the accommodations that they might have received so that we know perhaps what we might need to do in order to tailor that to the work environment. I can tell you just a little bit about, I guess, a personal experience. I also have a physical disability and limits the use of my arms, and I was a client of VR as a teenager entering my adulthood. And they were fundamental in just helping me explore the world of work. I had not really been a part of the world of work other than babysitting some neighbor kids. And I really didn't know how to advocate for myself because I only knew in my mind what I couldn't do, and I didn't necessarily know how to advocate for what I could do. And that's where VR really stepped in and assisted with helping me understand my strengths and helping me understand how my interests could be achievable into the world of work. And that might mean accommodations, and it might mean doing things a little bit differently with how I might achieve that outcome, but certainly that it was a doable, achievable outcome. And so they really worked with me and just helping me through evaluation exercises. For me, that looked like taking some interest inventories. Perhaps I remember doing some assessments and aptitude tests that kind of looked at my skills and abilities, my physical limitations as well. And they were also very instrumental in helping me with my independent living skills. Of course, as any young child, I wanted to move out. And so they were instrumental in helping me understand what I could do and what I might need assistance with in independent living. And also very instrumental in helping me achieve the goal of driving. That was something that I really needed for my independence, and they worked with me on getting a driving evaluation done. They advocated for me at the DMV to get my learner's permit, and they continued to work with me until I got successful at getting my driver's license.
When you talk about the work you do, obviously you have to do it with other organizations. Talk about how you interface with especially school districts in Omaha, the metro area, but also as you move out west.
Certainly. So we do have a lot of community partners that we work with. You mentioned the school districts. That's definitely a huge part of the work we're starting to really get into with our transition program. And we also work with, dependent upon the types of impairments, we might co-join with, like Community Alliance, for instance, for mental health, or ACN, the Autism Center for Nebraska, to help us with those that might be on the spectrum. Sometimes we've found that it's better to put two heads together or two groups together to really fundamentally help individuals secure employment and work well with one another. So the school districts is something that we're actually in the midst right now of coming up with some memorandums of understandings, just so that the school districts can understand a little bit more about how we are going to be implementing our program a little bit differently in the school district. In the past, it's been mainly working one-on-one with students, and now we're looking at doing more group activities, allowing students to do more in the classroom settings, which means that the school districts might be working with us a little differently than they have in the past. And so, really right now we're just trying to figure out what is this, what are the school districts already offering as far as what they're doing internally in the district, and what can VR do to maybe create a little bit further expansion of career exploration, and also, again, looking at the impairment aspect of it, because that's such an important piece. We can explore careers all day long, but we really want to emphasize that significant piece of what our agency does, which is really looking at impairment and that impediment so that the individual is very successful in what they want to do.
A question that kind of dovetails on that. First of all, thank you so much for sharing your story, because I think that helps us put into perspective, and also brought up this question that I have. You've mentioned the transition program. So if there's a student who has been working with VR throughout their high school career, and now they're graduated and they're ready to enter the workforce, do they work with the same staff or the same caseworker, or can you just talk to us a little bit about how the relationship might progress as they enter adulthood?
Sure. That's a good question, because that kind of goes along with some of the changes that we're facing with the federal regulations. So right now, as we're working with the WIOA changes, and we are putting ourselves into the school districts a little bit more, it means that those students are going to be working with a group of individuals from VR, just to give them the fundamentals of what VR can do, and also give them those career exploration activities and tools, just to get them starting to prepare their thinking towards what their future might look like. Once then they are ready for those adult services, or they are ready to apply for vocational rehab services, then they will be transferred to one of our vocational rehab counselors that are in one of the offices. So at that time, they will start going to the VR office of wherever their designated residency is, and we'll begin to work with that individual one-on-one to start writing that goal for employment.
Cool, thank you. Janae has a question.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming.
I probably already benefited from the financial assistance with VR.
I personally benefited from the financial assistance with VR
For college
for college.
and does any of that change with the new regulation?
Does any of that change with the new regulations?
For the funding for post-secondary education?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a really good question as well. At this current time, as with all of the clients that we serve, again, I keep going back to that tag word, individualized. We do have the capacity to assist financially with any sort of post-secondary or certificate or licensure program that somebody might need in order to get into their career choice. And we look at many different factors in order to come up with the justification for whether or not our agency would be that primary funding source, or whether or not there might be some other community resources that would push forward, I guess, with that financial support. When we look at, let's say, four-year college, typical college, let's say UNO or UNL, for example, a lot of times what we need to ensure is that the student has the ability to get financial aid assistance. And once we have determined that they are eligible for financial aid, we then complete a form with the student that calculates what their unmet need is. When we determine what that unmet need is, then that is how our agency kind of factors in what type of financial assistance we can put forth with that student. Now, if we're looking at maybe a certificate or a licensure program that doesn't necessarily fall under a financial aid program, so for example, a CNA program, we consider that to be more of a miscellaneous type training, and if the conditions are right, meaning that the individual doesn't have a lot of financial support or doesn't have a lot of other supports in line to assist with the cost of that program, then we will look at funding that program. So it just goes back to everybody's, financial history, their supports in place now, and, again, if that college program, that licensure, or that certificate program is going to get them to where they want to be with a career in mind. So some of that also means that we are doing a lot of phone calls, calling employers potentially and saying, what's the labor market going to look like in 4 years? Can you help us project that? We might be looking at the Department of Labor to help us out with some labor market analysis information. So we do a lot of planning. It's not like someone just comes in and says, hey, I want to go to college, and we say, all right, we're going to write that plan. We do a lot of analysis with the individual. We want to make sure it's the right fit, and we also want to make sure that it is something that once they get that degree or that license, that they want to stay with for a period of time. So it's a lot of that assessment and analyzation that occurs.
You had talked earlier about some of the collaborations and how that was turning out to be a very successful approach. And I know one area that VR has collaborated with a variety of school districts, DD providers, et cetera, has been the Project Search program. perhaps you could share a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, the Project Search program is actually something that has taken off and been quite successful across the state. And actually, if I go back a little bit to the presentation and I showed you the link for the Pathway to Employment series, some of those videos actually show some Project Search highlights. But Project Search is basically allowing individuals to get into an employment opportunity and get some hands-on training. And so earlier I mentioned we have kind of a two-way network as far as our clients. We have our clients that come to us for the services, and then we also have the employers. We do a lot of networking with employers, and Project Search has been one of those instrumental efforts where we have taken our connections with employers and really broadened them to actually create Project Search, which is allowing so many individuals to kind of go in and explore the world of work, kind of learn a day in the life of, if you will, about what that looks like. And so that has been a successful program. And again, Project Search is just one of our programs. We also have certificate programs that we do across the state, and those might be towards like your heating and air conditioning or your automotive type programs, where they actually, students that, or clients, I should say, that are interested in those types of trades can have the opportunity to get certified in one of those trades and then bridge themselves into an employment opportunity. So there's a lot of great things actually happening within our agency, and I think that's why I said earlier there's a lot of states kind of looking at us and learning from us as we've moved forward, because I think our agency is one of the agencies by far that kind of thinks outside of the box a little bit as far as how to help people reach their outcomes that they're looking to reach.
Thank you.
How important is tracking outcomes to your group so that you can, become more sharp in the services you do offer, and as you mentioned, project what might need to happen 5-10 years down the road?
Mm-hmm. Tracking data is very important, and actually one of the newer aspects of our internal database system is that we have kind of a data board that we can look at across the state and tells us all sorts of information. It gives us an idea of the top ranking disabilities that certain offices are seeing. It gives us an idea of those top occupational fields that we're also seeing clients get placed in. And it also allows us to look at some of those fields that may not be as high. How can we make them higher? How can we help our clients get into more of those other types of occupational fields? So really it allows us to track as we are going on, and it's real-time data. So every night it refreshes itself, and so every day we can kind of go in and see what's going on across the state, get an idea of the services that are being offered, the outcomes that are being had by each office, and then it allows us to do some real-time analysis of what we can be doing better as we progress forward.
And speaking of those outcomes, how challenging is funding for you, especially for a statewide organization? What's that like, if you could talk to the audience about where your funding comes from?
So our funding actually comes from the federal government, and so that rehab rate is actually a really important aspect of our funding. We want to ensure that we stay above the percentage that I'd mentioned earlier, which I think was 55.8, yeah, I think percent. And that's a really important aspect of the funding piece. And then also with every successful outcome we get, we have a goal each year that we have to meet. And so what we usually do is break that up by team, dependent again upon number of employers, demographically speaking. So it gets a little bit more tough as you go out to the western part of the state, the rural areas. But we do break those goals up by team, and oftentimes, I honestly can't say the last time we haven't made our goal. So we have never had an issue with any sort of federal funding. We do a lot of audits on ourselves. We have someone within our state that goes out to teams and kind of looks through our cases and says, hey, if you don't get this in place, that might ding us. So we're very careful about the work we do. We do a lot of case reviews, and we're always training our staff so that we can continue to achieve our goals, so that we can continue to get that funding that we need to carry out our services.
This isn't my question, just curious. Do you know how many employees your agency has statewide?
I was asked that earlier, and I threw out the number. I think it's right around 200, give or take, across the state.
Great.
So yeah.
So my question, and you might think I'm totally crazy for asking this, but as I said in our introduction, so I represent adults with autism spectrum disorders. My mother is on the spectrum. She would have absolutely benefited from a program like VR if we had been aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole other story. But what I'm wondering is, do you offer any services, guidance, resources for employees who are entering the retirement age, and how to navigate that, when to retire, how to access their benefits, or is that a different agency altogether?
We do go into some aspects of that in the career planning process. We work with, there's no cap on an age that our agency will serve as far as maximum cap. Our minimum is age 14. But outside of that, we can serve anyone in any age range. And that aspect of retirement planning and you know, some of those things that will come up later in that adult's life, we will touch upon as we are looking in that career planning aspects. But oftentimes we will refer out just for them to have a little bit more in-depth, I guess, coverage on that discussion. We do work a lot with the, I might screw this name up, so maybe you guys can help me, but it's the Office of Aging. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So we do work a lot with them. We partner with them a lot when we're working with individuals that might be close to retirement age or want to start looking at that retirement outline.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You spoke a little bit about the number of cases you have statewide. Do you have an idea of how many active cases you have within the city? Since that's our purview, so. And it's not a quiz, so
Okay.
if you're not aware, that's okay.
I don't know. I can tell you, what I can tell you is that our Omaha downtown office, so downtown we have two teams. We have the downtown team and then we have the south team that kind of split up by zip code. And our Omaha downtown team is by far our highest as far as applicants that we receive across the state. But as far as exact numbers, I'm sure I could get into my database and take a look for you if I knew how to work this system over here. But I can tell you that Omaha downtown is by far one of the highest as far as applicants that come to us and referrals that come to us.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, does your office do anything special when you identify certain areas that might have higher needs than others?
Well, I think it comes down to how we staff those offices. There's a lot of determination that goes into, you know, as we're looking, maybe as someone leaves our agency, what do we want to do with that vacant position? Sometimes we don't make it the same position as it was based on the number of applicants we have or the number of cases that we need that maybe are more in the placement, job placement realm than in the career planning realm. So there's some things that we do there as far as taking a look at those vacant positions and really identifying what the need is in that team in order to best represent the clients that are coming in and where they are when they come to us. And then we also do a lot of kind of team interface strategies. So as I mentioned, there's counselors, there's evaluators, there's placement specialists, there's transition specialists. We have a lot of people kind of doing a lot of different things within our agency. But at times, we'll come together in what are called WIN meetings, which is Work in Nebraska meetings. And those occur every week. And that's a time for us to bring together cases that might be a little tough. Maybe we're having some difficulties with some aspect of the individual's case as far as career planning strategies or labor market information. And it's just a time for everyone to come together with all of our knowledge and really work on that case in order to bring it forward. And with that, that's also a time for us to engage employers. We have employers that come to those WIN meetings, and they share information with us about their openings, their willingness to work with our agency, how much advocacy would they be willing to have from the VR counselors. So we do a lot of different strategies like that to help these cases continue to move forward, so that our hope is that no client feels like they're stuck in the process or they're not moving ahead in the process.
So an employer could come to you and say, I have a particular interest in working directly with VR, and you would be open to that?
Oh, certainly, yes. We have, we call them BAMs. They're our business account managers. And
Great name.
yes, it is a great, we're all about acronyms in our agency. And our BAMs, actually, their role is to go out and try to find employers that are willing to work with us. And that is our ultimate goal, is to get employers to really understand the nature of the work that we do in our agency, and to be open to ideas of, if we have someone who really wants to work there, but maybe there's a severe physical limitation, what is that employer willing to do, or will they allow us to come in and take a look at that setting and come up with some ideas? We work with ATP, which is Assistive Technology Partnership. A lot of times they're involved in those conversations as well, as far as what can we do to offer accommodations or adaptations in the work site, so that the cost isn't so much on the employer, but it's going through VR and ATP to secure that employment for that individual, and they can have open access to that environment.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you, we talked about tracking and outcomes a little while ago. When you're looking at trends moving forward, that's one thing for specific types of employment, but have you seen, or can you talk about the change in attitudes? Has there been a change in attitudes, and what are you forecasting on employers' willingness and understanding of those folks with disabilities and the need for employment?
We actually have. I think over the years there has definitely been, some of that stigma has lifted, I believe, as far as employers understanding about the disability population, the understanding of different impairments, and also understanding that a disability or impairment isn't just physical. There are lots of what we call invisible disabilities, which would be like mental health and learning disabilities and such. And so I think with, especially as we go out and we talk to employers, they're very engaged in working with us, and that has made us very happy in what we do. I mean, there's not a lot of convincing that we have to do once we start talking about our agency, who we are, and how we want to help individuals get into the world of work. So we have seen a very open and engaged audience as far as employers go, you know, and wanting to work with us and partner with us to get people into the world of work.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, we want to thank you so much for being here. You did a great job. We threw a lot of questions at you, so I think you're extremely articulate and well-spoken, so thank you for that, and also for sharing your personal story.
Could you also, one more time, share a telephone number or website folks can go? I apologize, I'm getting over a cold.
Sure. So here in the local area, in the Omaha metro area, the phone number would be area code 402-595-2100. And then our website, www.vr.ne.gov, is going to be able to offer more information, I guess, in relation to the offices across the state and your first point of contact to get in with our agency.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take a couple minutes to see if our members have any updates or announcements from their organizations. We'll start again with Jan.
I do not have any updates or announcements.
I would like to give a shout out to Jan. Mosaic held their annual fundraising luncheon, 2 weeks ago, and it was extremely inspiring. I was invited to be a table captain, so congratulations. I hope it was a successful event. Your speakers and your presenters and your singers and everybody was just really lovely.
Thank you very much, Wendy. We appreciate that.
I don't have any updates. Thank you.
Sure. I'll just jump in really quickly. I encourage our visitors, or excuse me, our viewers to visit autismnebraska.org to learn about the activities hosted by the Autism Society of Nebraska. We are ramping up for the holidays, so there are going to be a lot of sensory-friendly and family-friendly events for everyone in the family.
I guess the biggest update we have in Medina is on September 29th, we had our grand opening of our Omaha campus. Had a lot of friends, a lot of family, a lot of dignitaries there. We're slowly ramping up to full capacity. As we get fully staffed, we can take more and more patients, and it's been a tremendous amount of goodwill. Many different aspects of Omaha's medical community have come together to help us. Partnerships with UNMC, partnerships with physicians across the area, almost every school, every hospital system in the area. So we're thankful to be here, and we say thank you for opening the doors and the hearts of many people to welcome us.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Welcome
It's been
to
fun.
Omaha. I mean, not you, but you know.
There you go.
With that, we will thank our sign interpreter, as always, for keeping up with us when we talk way too fast. So thank you so much for that. Thank you to Sam and Chris, who help with our technology. And we're ending a little bit early, but thank you so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.